Hello there. I'm Dr. Bradley Wolfe, and I'm going over Chapter 16 in the Public Speaking Project textbook on persuasive speaking. So this chapter covers what is persuasive speaking, along with a variety of kind of types and different types of persuasive speeches, organization patterns, uh, a lot of other information. For some reason, the chapter got printed wrong on my sheet, so the end stuff came first, and introduction came second. But introduction, persuasion is everywhere. So when looking at the gas pumps, sometimes you may have a little video playing trying to sell you on a product. Um, even in the examination room at your doctor's office, there'll be little pamphlets and flyers. Um, Advertising, right? Advertising is everywhere in the United States, so we see this as persuasion. We see persuasion in um, on TV, or friends and family try and persuade us as well. You may be getting persuaded at where to go for dinner tonight, right? Maybe as simple as that. But definitely persuasion happens every day, all around us. So a little bit about persuasive, and specifically about persuasive speaking, right? It's a public speaking forum, so not really interpersonal or small group persuasion, but as a public speaking forum, we look at persuasion. So it has a couple definitions here. So first is broadly, persuasion is the art of convincing others to give favorable attention to your point of view. So that you're convincing other people in public speaking, you're one person talking to an audience, convincing them to have a favorable attention to your point of view. So it talks about that there's skills, right? There's an artfulness to persuade others, and you're also trying to get an end result that the audience is going to view your idea differently. Then another definition here of persuasion. So persuasion encompasses a wide range of communication activities, including advertising, marketing, sales, political campaigns, and interpersonal relationships. So really, regardless of what you plan on doing with life, persuasion is going to be useful. Getting good at persuasion is going to be useful. We look at, there's some theories that say for kind of persuasion and conflict management, specifically, that it's not just about being able to persuade people well, but also maintaining those relationships in a way that are positive. So not just getting what you want, but also getting what you want and still having a good positive relationship with the other person. So those are two aspects to persuasion. You may get what you want and everybody hates you, or you may, be super nice, Minnesota nice, right? Minnesotan here. So we're Minnesota nice, we're deferring to other people. We're not getting what we want, but maybe we have positive relationships, right? We don't want either of those extremities. We want a combination of having good, positive relationships with people while still be able to convince them of what we want. And most occasions, right? You don't always need to win, but the more, the better, right? It's also good to be open to other people's perspectives, right? That's one of the keys of persuasion is being open to other people's perspectives, because then they're going to be more open to you. This is more about interpersonal communication than public speaking. But if you're really interested in listening and hearing from the audience, they're going to be more willing to listen to you as well. And we'll talk about that when we talk about more of a hostile audience and how to make them listen to your perspective, is by not taking the time to understand theirs as well. But first, we're going to go with functions of persuasive speeches. So first is a speech to convince. So this is you're trying to influence the audience on particular beliefs, attitudes, or values. Excuse me. So it talks here about the environment, which is a common public speaking topic. And this is saying here, that is climate change real, right? And so it's you're convincing either that it is real, that it's man-made, or some people believe it is more just throughout history, we have seen different climate levels, and it's a natural part of the environment for things to change. So again, you're trying to convince people of your point of view. The speech to convince. Speeches to actuate. This is more of I recommend for my students. A speech to actuate is you're giving some sort of call to action. You want to change behaviors. So the example they give here is infomercials. So trying to sell you a $20 spatula. Call this number right now, right? So you're trying to get you to motivate to buy the product. We see a lot of advertising is about getting that, you trying to motivate you to action, to do something. So it is to the speech to actuate is to motivate behavior. I often tell my students to have a call to action right in that conclusion. So it's not just, oh, I'm going to think differently, but what am I going to do with those new thoughts, right? Oh, I'm listening. I believe the environment is man-made. So what am I going to do differently as a result of that? How am I going to change my behaviors? Who am I going to call, or what sort of advocacy am I going to do? It talks here about types of persuasive speeches. So whether you want behavior or ideas or both, right? I encourage you to do both, change their ideas and behaviors. That fits in with the different types of speeches. So first is proposition of fact. So again, fact is something, whether something can be verified or true or false. So again, climate change, there's some debate about that. So that's one example. It also talks about racial profiling and different ideas regarding criminal justice. What's the right thing to do in order to create safer communities that are kind of equitably enforced? So certainly there's a variety of opinions about that. There's, people say Black Lives Matter versus Blue Lives Matters. That you can get into more minute details within that debate as well. Different ideas related to community policing, discrimination that may be happening. They talk about even the sentencing guidelines. So a lot of things to debate. It's not just hot button issues. Oh, Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter. A lot of people have opinions about that. They can get very heated debates about it. You get into the more details. So how should community policing look, right? Then you can have more meaningful conversation, right? If you're just shouting at each other that slogans, you're not going to get anywhere. I don't recommend doing that, but certainly get into those details regarding, pick a specific thing about, again, proposition of fact, to show that, hey, this fact exists. So saying that racial profiling exists, that's a true or false fact. You can say, hey, it exists in this context, in these communities. This is what we see. So it talks here about, healthcare as well. What is the cause of healthcare being so expensive in the United States? Right? Again, can be a hot button issue. People talking about universal healthcare or the free markets. But certainly we can talk about more detailed ideas when we look at kind of prescription drug prices in the United States versus Canada, European Union. Regardless of who's paying for them, it's more expensive here. Why is that? So that could be a proposition of fact, saying, hey, based on my research, this is the cause of inflated drug prices in the United States. It talked here about proposition of fact making predictions. So there was, in the summer of 2011, there were some 10 miles of freeway closed for an entire weekend. All the news outlets, oh, Armageddon, all these, everything's going to be, traffic's going to be terrible, so bad you're not going to get anywhere. While that was a prediction based on a lot of facts and good information, it ended up not being true because the media convinced people that it's going to be so bad, fewer people went on the roads. It's like, I'm not dealing with that. Right? So it may have been true at the time, but the prediction wasn't fulfilled because the persuasive wasn't effective. So again, some examples related to persuasion and about the facts. So again, what are the facts? What are the, you can persuade about, this is the cause, this is the kind of issue at hand that we need to talk about, whether it's true or false, whether people are going to believe that is a valid cause of something or a valid issue that needs to be dealt with. Next is propositions of values. So judging the worth of something based on the value. So you're going to introduce those values saying, hey, here's our value criteria, the evaluation criteria, and here's what we're judging. So it gives an example of the best cars, right? You can persuade someone that, hey, this car is the best. I drive a Mitsubishi Mirage, right? Tiny little car. Probably not the best car, but Mitsubishi Mirages are the best because I care about gas mileage, right? That's why I picked it. It has good gas mileage. It's a small car with good gas mileage. So my evaluation criteria fit for that car. It's a small car. I like the hatchback style. Again, blue. I like the color. It's a bright car. It's a unique shade of blue that's easy to find in a parking lot, right? So again, you're putting the proposition value. I don't think a lot of people would sit there and go for the Mitsubishi Mirage, 2014 Mitsubishi Mirage, but I can make that proposition. It's 10 years old now when this video is made. It's a 10-year-old car. But again, it works well for me. So again, what are your evaluation criteria is the proposition of values. It gives an example here too, media story about removing a woman's feeding tube after she'd been in a coma for 15 years. So again, what's the evaluation criteria? How much do you support life? What sort of medical intervention should be done? Should they be removed from the feeding tube? We can have quality of life and care. I mean, if I had a loved one who was in a coma for 15 years, that's not a quality of life, right? I don't want them to suffer any longer. That's my value on that. But other people say, hey, no, life's important. We should be trying to save, preserve life at all costs. So again, what is the evaluation criteria and why should the audience agree with your evaluation criteria? So that's the proposition of value. Last is a proposition of policy. So this is more action. We can look at policy questions related to government is often where these would be seen. So in Congress and the legislator, cities doing things, for example, banning single-use plastic bags in stores or charging for them, maybe a tax on them, whatever it may be. So with policy questions, speakers were typically describe the status quo, for arguing that a change must be made, talking about the problem, and then the solution. How is the solution going to be? Why does it need to be considered? And what's the solution? Why is that going to be better than the status quo? So policy can be a big thing. Again, like the legislator. And then I always tell my students, do call to action. Okay, we believe this should be in Congress, a law passed by Congress. You should call your congressperson, right? That's a good call to action. Call your congressperson. Put on social media. Take your congresspeople on social media and tell them that they should adopt that change. Talks here example about the Postal Service as well. Postal Service proposed that they can end Saturday mail delivery and close some post offices. They described the status quo. They described some of the shortfalls, budget shortfalls, everything else. They may have made a compelling case, but there's still a lot of disadvantages to the proposition, impact on businesses in rural towns. Right? I live in a rural community and we like our post office. So again, just another example. So choosing a topic, right? Choose a topic. I always tell students, choose a topic that you're passionate about, right? Say something if you're researching a persuasive topic that you don't even care about, or you can convince an audience to change, right? Pick something that you're passionate about, that you're at least interested in. So talk about something it says about war veterans with PTSD, gas prices increasing. There's a lot of websites that just list persuasive speaking topics. You can do something more serious. You can also do something more fun. Like I said, the best car, that's a persuasive speaking topic. It can be I've had students do the best basketball player. This person is the greatest of all time in basketball. So whatever it may be, there's a lot of ways to do it. But I say, first of all, do something that you enjoy, and then something that you can. I'll always recommend having a call to action. So think about where your audience is at too. So that's out of one student, right? College classroom, college audience, all college students. Their topic was, I wanted to talk about why you should go to college. Okay, your entire audience is people already in college. They're already doing what you're advocating them to do. That's tough, right? That's tough when your entire audience not only agrees with you, but is already acting upon it. So how are you going to make them think differently, right? If they already agree with you and already doing what you say, how are you going to make them think or behave differently? That's going to be hard. Also, another common one that I hear is about drunk driving, right? Saying, oh, don't drink and drive. Does anyone disagree with that? I mean, people drink and drive, but most people know that it's not the right thing to do. So how are you going to make the audience think differently about it, right? So that's a difficult topic in order to change attitude or change their mind. Are you just talking to a group of active alcoholics, right? I don't know where you're finding that audience, but maybe, right? So again, thinking about your audience in mind too when you're choosing a topic is important. So I think this next topic talks about. This next section talks about approaching audiences. So really thinking about who is the audience for your presentation. Often in a college classroom, you may have fellow college students as your audience. Often they'll be doing your speeches. An online public speaking classroom, you have maybe your family members as an audience too. Often you'll share your speeches with the entire class, but you may have your live audience being family or friends. So keep your audience in mind, all of your audience. I'm part of an audience too for my students, right? As a teacher, I'm part of your audience. So your audience can have a different reactions to your topic that you selected. They can be a receptive audience. So they know something about your topic. They're generally supportive of it or open to it, right? College students in a college classroom talking about why you should go to college. You have a very receptive audience there. But what are you trying to get them to do differently, right? So they're already convinced that it's important. The topic is important, but they may not be persuaded that they have the need or ability to do something about it or do something more about it. So with a receptive audience, the textbook recommends you first foster identification with them by highlighting stuff you have in common. Hey, we all care about this, right? We're all college students. We care about going to college. We care about school. So again, getting that identification and then showing, hey, what are you going to do differently? Where are you going to take it from there after building that common ground? So offer a clear statement of purpose and tell the audience what you'd like them to do in response to your message. They already likely agree with your point, so they're probably going to act upon it, but what action do you want them to take? Give them practical steps they could take, even if they might be carried out later. One of the things I always recommend is an easy way is, hey, follow this on social media. Not all students, but most students are on social media. So if you tell your audience, go on social media to follow, the Higher Education Consortium, I don't know, just making something up there, for more information about higher education and what you can do to advocate, right? That's an easy call to action. Just follow something on social media. Hey, research more of this about your own time. Share about your college experience with your family and friends and tell them why it's valuable to them. You're already in college. You already know this is important, and you can be a agent for change, right? Whatever it may be. If you have a receptive audience, that's what you want to look at. Neutral audience. So most groups that you're going to speak to are neutral audiences. They may not be passionate about the topic. They may not know the topic well. They may just be gathering new information there. So neutral audience is to get them to get interest in your topic. So find a way to make it interesting. I always say that if it's interesting to me, I can make it interesting to your topic, right? Just my passion and enthusiasm. I've seen this with students too. Many students can do this. Just your enthusiasm on the topic can help get the audience interested in it and engage with it. So sometimes it's a story or statistic that can help bring your audience in. So it could be a relatable experience that they may have if you know your audience, being able to build some common ground there again. But then the more you get them inclined to be interested in the topic, the more likely they are to change their thoughts on it, their position on it, or take action with the behaviors that you're recommending. So again, but here it's about exciting them and getting them interested in the topic. The last audience, the most fun one, no, not really. So a hostile audience. So some audience may be resistant or hostile to your persuasive speech, and you may go into it knowing, hey, I'm going to pick a topic that's controversial. How am I going to build some common ground with the audience? So if you're picking a hot button issue, so often really you're not just going to have an audience who's all hostile, all neutral, or all, what they say, receptive for the first one. You're probably going to have a combination, right? Especially if you have a bigger audience. If you just have a few people, you may know that, hey, this is a neutral audience, or hey, I know this is a receptive audience. But you may have some hostile people in your audience. So how are you going to deal with hostile people? So your primary goal is to persuade them to listen to what you have to say and then change their minds for the future. So the first way to do that, to encourage them to hear you out, is letting them know you understand their perspective. So you're going to talk through, often you'll say, hey, here's what you believe, right? Or not saying it that way, but here's what people opposed to my position believe. And here's why I view things differently. So again, address those things directly. You do want to have a clear statement of purpose, which, and it may be more muted than you would do with a receptive audience, right? Receptive audience, they agree with you. Let's go to the call to action. Here's all the things you can do. A hostile audience, you're going to need to talk about the issue a little bit more. So it gives an example here, telling business owners that they should pay their workers more. They may not want to do that. So they're going to think all the threats, all the negative things. So it's good to highlight some issues in which you agree, right? We want a productive workforce. We want people, workers giving their maximum, doing their best. We want to retain quality workers and have people here for a long time. So again, having that agreement as well. You understand the challenges they have. You're getting areas of agreement, and you can talk about organization in the next section. But you can talk about areas where you agree. You can understand the challenges, the cons that they're bringing up, but also saying, why is your position better? So being able to address those cons in a very instructive way. So you can give examples of companies who paid their workers more, were able to, what were they able to do? How were they able to make it successful? How were they able to overcome some of those challenges that the audience may have in mind? So again, it's being empathetic to their position, being open-minded, and also building some common ground. With all these audiences, you're building that common ground. Receptive audience, you already have common ground. Let's directly say that in the speech and show that we have common ground, right? Build that. With a neutral audience, again, building their passion and interest in the topic. Hostile audience, what do we agree on? Even if we disagree on a lot of things here, what are some things that we do agree on to make sure that we have some common interest in mind, and keep those interests with your solutions that you're proposing as well. So in terms of persuasive strategies within a speech itself, it talks here about ethos, pathos, and logos. ethos is talking about character, right? So being that I always remember by ethical character, right? Ethos, ethical, starts with the same. So, but it's about having a good character. So showing that you're a credible speaker. Cite your sources, right? I always tell students, make sure to verbally cite your sources because it shows that you're that you did the research and know what you're talking about, boosts your credibility. Again, building that common ground, sharing some personal experience, saying why you're interested in the topic, that can help build your ethos as well. Um, so that's a little bit about credibility there. You can read through more if you'd like to. Next is logos. So having a logical argument that makes sense. So in persuasive speaking, it's really about that argument that your evidence aligns with your positions that you have. So it talks here about a claim, the assertion that you want the audience to accept as the data. So the evidence that you have, which the claim is based. Talks here about the warrant as well. So some unstated general connection. So how is this data, this evidence connected to the claim? And how does it all fit together, right? It needs to fit together in a logical way, right? If you have data, talking about, if your evidence is based on climate change and your topic is this is ridiculous, but your topic is about criminal justice, right? It doesn't align. That makes no sense, right? You need to make sure your evidence fits with your topic and that it's from credible sources as well. So you can, again, verbally cite those sources in a way which makes them sound credible. So to strengthen basic arguments, you need backing for the claim as well. It talks here about a basic argument, having that data or evidence, having the claim, having a warrant here. So data, claim, warrant, and backing. So a few different structures, the Toolman model of basic argument. You certainly can use inductive reasoning, which is from specific examples to a more general claim. Deductive reasoning has a more general claim for the specific examples. So again, there's a variety of ways to approach it. At Ridgewater College, we have the argumentation and reasoning class, which goes in this entire semester, kind of based on this stuff. You also can look at philosophy classes that are based on logic. That this kind of stuff will be included in there as well. Here, we're just briefly going over it because there's part of persuasive speaking. So there's the causal reasoning, which how are these things related? Does one thing cause another? Are these impacting each other? So cause and effect. So a lot to do with logic. Again, you can do an entire semester on logic. Certainly, you can do more. You can multiple semesters on different types of logic. Get a degree in it, but I'm just briefly covering it here. And the last one, ethos, pathos, and logos. So pathos here is the emotional appeal. So drawing on the emotions, the sympathies. It talks about the prejudice of the audience to appeal to their non-rational side. So Plato said that at the end of the day, pathos is going to win. Right? It's that emotional appeal, even if what's being said is not logical, even if a person doesn't have great character, if you can get into those emotions, you can have a convincing, persuasive argument. Now, I don't recommend doing that, right? As someone who teaches public speaking, I don't say, oh, just use pathos and forget about everything else. No, I say character and logic are the things that are easiest to address in a speech. Those are the things to go to make sure they're structured well. But you have to remember that emotional appeal, the pathos is going to be there. If you're talking about a sensitive issue, someone or to an audience who has a very strong opinion on something, they have a lot of emotional appeal there. Where if your logic and your character is not getting through, saying, "Hey, I did my research, I have these sources, I know what I'm talking about," and you're kind of butting up against, it's probably that pathos that's getting in the way. People have strong emotions on some issues, and so how do you overcome those emotional topics? And again, I think that's about building the common ground. It's like, hey, we care about the same things, right? Emotion, care. We're caring about the same things. We have some similar values. Where you're clearly very passionate about this topic, right? So I can see your passion here. I can see your interest, and I appreciate that. Again, trying to take the time to understand where they're coming from can be helpful. Talks about the nonverbals as well. So you can read more about nonverbal communication, another chapter related to public speaking. But also making sure your emotions match what you're saying. If you have a serious topic, you're talking in a serious way. If you have a more fun, lighthearted topic, you may be able to joke around. So making sure there's emotions and the nonverbal. So nonverbal, I'm talking about like in voice and vocal inflections, smiling, your facial expressions, your body posture, all of that should match your topic. And again, if you're just talking like you would in a conversation, you'll probably have the right emotions. Yeah. People call me a robot sometimes. My friend likes to call me a robot, but as long as you're not a robot or an android, right? As long as you're not one of those, you'll probably have normal emotions along with your topic, and you don't need to overthink about it. So this example here talks about a Montana meth project. So, right, methamphetamine can have some emotions there. So they have graphic images on billboards to evoke a fear of drugs. So some very disturbing examples. So sometimes again those visuals can be difficult, but they can also be motivating for people to use that emotion. Or you see ads where people are all happy and hanging out together in the ad. Oh, I want to be popular. I want to be friends. I want to be attractive, right? So that's they go in and buy those products for those reasoning. Again, that emotional appeal, even if it's not logical, even if sometimes the ethos, the character, if you have a celebrity that may have some public ethos, but sometimes they just use like models and ads. And the models, it's more, hey, I want to be a cool, attractive person like them, and that's the motivating factor in those ads. So not all emotions are good or used well, right? So we talk about coercion, where you're uh, using persuasion, but you're also uh, not using it in a nice way. So they're deceptive or harmful in some way when you're coercing people to propel your intended changes. So you're not using reason, you're using deception around it. There's also fallacies, which a lot of emotional appeal uses fallacies. So sometimes you may be watching politician, and they're like, there's a logical fallacy. There's another one. There's another one. So their fallacies are errors in reasoning that occur when a speaker fails to use appropriate evidence, and we see politicians in the United States use logical fallacies a lot of the time. So here's some examples of fallacies. The casual fallacy, bandwagon fallacy. Bandwagons where everyone should do it too. Oh, cool kids don't wear helmets when they ride bikes. You should take yours off, right? Who cares what cool kids do, right? You should do the right thing. Um, Begging the question. So it says Lion King is an excellent film because it has excellent animation. Marijuana is good for you because it's natural. Well, it's excellent because it's excellent. It's good because it's good. Like, right? You're not really giving evidence. You're just restating uh, what you believe. So, ad hominem attacks. We should reject President Obama's healthcare legislation because it's socialism. We should ignore Donald Trump's opposition tax site because he's just rich and selfish, right? You're attacking the person without actually talking about the policy, right? You need to get a little bit more detailed there. Um, appeal to flattery, saying, "Hey, you're my favorite class," and I tell all my friends how much I love it, and it's really great, right? So again, just trying to flatter the person. Appeal to misplaced authority. The diet, this diet is the best one for people with my health condition. Oprah said, because Oprah said so, right? Is Oprah a doctor? Right? No, she influences a lot of people. A lot of people like that misplaced authority, or red herrings. So you can read through these. There's tons more as well. Again, you can do an entire class on logical fallacies that you certainly can read through. But again, you want to avoid fallacies. You don't want to use these, but people use them all the time. So one of the other benefits of learning about persuasion is not just to be a good persuader yourself, but to identify when persuasion is ineffective or when people are using, again, logical fallacies. They're using poor choices or examples. So you can start kind of pulling them apart. And it's not really effective if you, especially in interpersonal conversation. Oh, you're using the either or fallacy. Like, you know, that's not necessarily going to convince them to change their mind. But again, if you think about the either or family, you're either with us or against us. Well, hey, there's a middle ground. There's other options there too. So again, think understanding these fallacies can help you kind of pull them apart and be a better listener, critical listener of messages, especially in politics they use them a lot, but also in advertising they use these, so you can be a better consumer of information overall. So there's a variety of ways to organize persuasive messages. So this first one is Monroe's motivated sequence. This is used a lot in advertising, especially like those late night ads. So you gain their attention, right? So attention's the first step. Describing your goals, previewing the speech, then a need. Hey, you have this need, whether it's need exists or not. Maybe you're creating a need for the audience. So gain their attention, then get a need. Hey, you're hungry. You like food, right? Maybe hungry or not. Satisfaction. Hey, I have this burger. And this burger is wonderful. So this burger is going to satisfy your need of hunger. Um, so again, satisfy, so problem solution, more or less, but also then has the visualization. So hey, once you're eating this burger, you're going to feel so good. All that hunger need is going to be solved. Right? So really visualizing for the audience to know what's going to happen once their solution is implemented. So going beyond just the problem solution format, and then action. Hey, what can you do? You can buy this burger right now, right? Just go down to the restaurant. I have a burger here. I'll sell it to you, right? Whatever it may be, you want them to take that action step. So attention, need, satisfaction, visualization, and action is Monroe's motivated sequence. It gives an example here about volunteering or donating at an animal protection agency as well. If you want another example, you can read through that. Next is a direct method pattern. So if you want your audience to adopt a particular idea, this is a way where you kind of have a claim and a list of reasons to support it. So it's a good pattern when listeners are either kind of more in that neutral territory, maybe mildly favoring, mildly opposing your claim, but they're more, again, it's a spectrum. It's not, not all audience members are in the same place either. But this talks about a speech on vegetarianism and provides reasons why vegetarianism provides useful health benefits for people struggling with obesity. So again, vegetarianism often reduces the amount of processed food that one eats. It promotes a sense of reflective consumption, and it decreases the likelihood that you're going to contract diseases such as cancer or heart disease. So again, just gives you another example there of the direct method. And there's the causal pattern. So Macintosh creates computers make people more creative. So it talks about kind of cause and effect. So I say it's a cause and effect speech, but this says it's causal, whatever. Refutation pattern is next. Here's an example of the cause and effect as well. This is the cause, this is going to be the effect. Refutation, if you have people who are opposed to your argument, the refutation may be more the way you want to go. Again, you may have audience members with a variety of viewpoints. So even if they're neutral, the refutation may work well. So it talks about 4 steps. So you're signaling the argument which you're responding to. You're stating your own argument. You're providing justification or evidence for your side, and you're summarizing your response. So you're saying, hey, here's the problem. Here's the opponent's argument. I studied it. I know it well, right? I'm accurately representing it because I took time to listen to their side and understand their perspective. And then here's why I refute it. So sometimes I have students do speeches where they change their side. So they give one speech on this side, and then the final speech I give them some choice so you can choose the other side. And that's a very good exercise just to understand both sides of the argument. So I always kind of recommend that. Take some time. So in conclusion, persuasive speaking, persuasion is everywhere, right? We have persuasion all around us. It's in advertising, it's in politics, it's in interpersonal relationships. Persuasion's even about saying, where do you want to go out to eat? What do you want to do? Hey, do you want to come hang out at my place later, right? Hey, let's study together. I'm going to persuade you to study and help me study. Whatever it may be, there's persuasion. So in persuasive speaking specifically, you're trying to figure out how you're going to change the mind of the audience. Do you want them to change their ideas, the way they believe about something, or do you want them to take action? I often recommend doing both, and especially having some call to action for the audience that's manageable and simple for them to opt into. That could always be helpful. There's a variety of strategies that you can use. In the chapter outlined ethos, pathos, and logos. It talked about strategies to avoid, right? Don't use logical fallacies, but certainly be aware of logical fallacies so you can be a better critical listener. And then also just understand where your audience is in relation to your topic. So pick a topic that you're excited about that works for you, and understand how your audience views that topic and how they'll react to it. And that will help you manage how to design your speech. You may use a different organization pattern, or you may have a different goal, depending on where you believe the audience is at. Of course, you don't necessarily know the audience. You don't know what they're going to believe about a topic beforehand, but whatever information you can get or assume based on, again, there's a variety of ways to do audience analysis, which you can read through the chapter on audience analysis for more of those. But certainly that's going to inform how you approach your persuasive speech. So I hope you found this video helpful. I hope you gained some valuable information here on how to be a better persuasive speaker. I'm always here if you have any questions. But thanks for watching this video, and best of luck to you with your persuasive speaking.